Hi, my name's Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants. And today we're here at the Laguna Hills Nursery in Santa Ana, California, where we're going to meet the owner, second generation owner of this nursery, Gary Matsuoka, who's going to talk about three very important and very different gardening lessons that'll help you make this growing season your best. Let's get started. So here we are now with the owner of the Laguna Hills Nursery, Gary Matsuoka. Did I pronounce that all right?
Good enough, that's good.
And if you want to share with all of us, what are the three topics we're going to discuss in today's lessons?
Well, today we'll be talking about what makes our potting soil different than anyone else's, and then talk about whitewashing certain trees for sunburn protection, and end up with a little discussion about apple trees.
Wonderful. So in this lesson, what we're going to talk about is soil. And soil is absolutely critical to the health and the life and the longevity of your trees, whether they're planted in pots or directly into the ground. You got to start off with the right soil. I've always been resorting to my combination of a mix of forest products and manures and trying to shy away from manures and using more leaf matter and poultry manure and all these different products that I found on my shelf. But I've learned so much in the last year, and that's the reason I want to share this with you viewers, so you can find the best products to, again, maximize the health and the life of your plants, whether they be fruit trees or your ornamentals. And Gary's here to help us out with that. One of the things before we get started is I've got a visual demonstration to share with you where I've got this fig tree that I've been potting in a pot for the last 3 to 4 years consecutively. And every year come spring, I'm usually pulling it out of the container, pulling the roots down as they've got compressed over the growing season. And then always those surface roots are always exposed, and I've always got to add another layer of soil to the surface soil. And let me share this video with you that I've got here on my phone, and then hopefully you can explain how we can correct this issue. So this is my question for Gary. When it comes to your potting soil, every year I would pot my fig tree. So this is my question for Gary. When it comes to your potting soil, every year I would pot my fig tree, which I have here in this container, and every single year I'll reset the soil level within the container, and I'll bring you closer in just a minute. But I notice every year as I'm readjusting and realigning the roots underneath, I can notice that all of it is getting compacted below. If you come in a little closer, what I want to share with you real quick is, if you can see here, you'll notice that this entire area, you can see all these roots that are exposed. Every year I bring it up to where the root level is covered, and you can see that it's settled by at least 1, if not 2 inches. Every year I bring it up to where it's about a 1/4 inch, maybe a 1/2 inch below the rim of the container, so that when I water, the water will pool around the area as it soaks the soil medium. So here's what's happening in this area, and I know that the analogy would be this, and I have here, for example, one of my pumpkin seedlings that I started. What I want to share with you is the root structure. If you come in over here, you can see right now it's basically suspended in a medium of vermiculite and perlite. These are both compounds that do not break down, and thereby the roots are going to stay suspended. But if the medium within it, and this is what's happening, is disintegrating and basically dissolving as the plants absorb the nutrients, and as the soil microbes are consuming all of that organic matter, whether it be bark or leaves or your kitchen scraps, whatever that compost may be. What's happening, if you can come in a little closer, is take a look at these roots. What's happening is, if this was made out of organic matter, it would break down there by crushing the roots. That's exactly what's happening within this fig container every year that I repot it. And so my question to Gary is, what soil medium should I be using to basically prevent this collapse of soil medium that's happening within my garden container every single year? So Gary, hope you got the answers.
Well, Charles, you're lucky you were using a fig tree. If that was an avocado there, it had been dead 2 years ago. So the thing about soil is that soil in nature is not organic, and it is permanent. And anytime you try to grow plants in a permanent medium or permanent material, if you don't have permanent soils, then your plants are going to be in trouble eventually. Within, say, 6 or 8 months in your case, every year you have to redo it. So we had the same problem. We noticed it back in the early 90s. And we talked to our some soil scientists about it, and they told us what we're doing wrong, and they told us the whole nursery industry was doing the same thing, doing the wrong thing. So I listened to this one scientist, and we started doing our own research and came up with our own materials. Now, the one thing about interesting thing we found out over the years that are good visual aids is that the perfect soil. So I got some sample of some really good soil from a local farm in Irvine, and the farmer there, who's been farming for generations now, said that this is the best soil they farmed on. So this soil here is almost pure sand, and the plants really do well on it, but it is about 99% mineral. Now, what's also interesting is we looked and see what the soil sandy loam is made from. It's a piece of rock. So if you grind granite up, this is what you get. So soil is a piece of granite that's broken down. So the white flecks in the granite are quartz, which becomes the sand and the silt, and the blacker or darker specks in this rock are feldspar, which are the clay. You can say it's vermiculite, it's clay, they're the same material. And that's what soil is made out of. It's not made out of dead things. So.
And this rock is, well, that's interesting how you explained the black specks would be the clay, which
Right.
clay is typically known for. And I tell a lot of users in a lot of my lessons when I'm digging and I hit clay, and I'm like, clay is a good thing. I know now I'm here in Southern California, a lot of people are growing through clay, and they scream every time they hit that rock compound, and they just struggle to get through those clay layers. But having lived in Florida for 8 years before returning back home, where there is no clay and you're dealing with sand, the issue in Florida is growers there will buy clay and bring it to their sandy soil because it helps retain minerals and nutrients around those root zones. It helps also with moisture. If you're just growing in sand, just like you're at the beach, that water passes through quickly, but clay holds it.
Yeah, it's real interesting. The definitions for soil have changed over years. So in the old days, sandy soil was poor soil and clay soil was rich soil. And now it's like, the terms are all mixed up, because now with our irrigation technology and all that, sandy soil has become the better soil to have on a farm. Whereas in the old days, it was the rich clay soils because they held water.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So we're trying to, back in the early 90s, we tried to make a potting soil that would be closer to something like this. Now, most soils don't work well in containers, especially in small containers, for the fact that they don't drain fast enough. So some plants will drown if the water sits there too long. So we had to come up with forms of quartz. So soil is basically quartz. If lightning strikes the ground, you usually get glass. So that's quartz. So we had to come up with materials such as that we could use as a soil. And the first thing we came up with is our acid mix. So we knew that quartz and sand is too heavy. Although plants grow wonderful in sand, it's just too heavy. So we wanted to find a lighter form of quartz, which happens to be pumice rock. Now, perlite is also a lighter version of quartz, but it floats too much. We like the pumice better. So pumice, volcanic rock, that's mostly air, because the gases blew through the rock, was our first choice. But to help it hold more moisture, because pumice does dry out very quickly, it doesn't hold that much water, we wanted to add to it the best moisture retention material we can find, and that happens to be peat moss. We asked the guys at UC Riverside, and they told us peat moss stores and releases water better than any other material known. Now, we know clay holds water better than peat, but clay won't let it go, whereas peat will let its entire layer of water off, let it go so the plant can use it. So we combined those together back in the early 90s and made a product called Acid Mix, and still our customers love it. We grow most of our flowers and vegetables in it. The peat does lose some structure over time, so this product will shrink about 10 to 15% over time. So for that reason, for trees and shrubs, we wanted to make something more permanent, and then we came up with Gary's Top Pot Mix, where we made 2/3 of this out of inert materials, permanent materials. So in here, besides the peat moss, 1/3, we've got the rest of that mix is pumice, perlite, sand, and charcoal. And we do like the charcoal in there. Charcoal is what makes the rich black soils of the world both rich and black. They said the rich black soils of the world only a 2% charcoal content, but that small amount of charcoal makes them both black and hold on to minerals like crazy. Charcoal's used in filters for that reason. So we found that when there's 2/3 of the materials are inert, there's virtually no shrinkage on it. Just like in soil, soil is 50 to maybe a little more percentage of solid material, but there's no shrinkage in that either. The smaller, like in our mix, we surmise anyway that the peat moss is sitting between the larger pieces of perlite and sponge rock and pumice and sand, so that as the peat moss slowly disintegrates, it doesn't affect the volume, because we're not seeing the volume shrink at all after any length of time. We just don't see our soil shrink. So.
Well, let me share another product which I brought from home, and this is something I've been using for years, and I'm just trying to get some of the moisture out of here so the users can see this. I guess I'm gonna have to get my hands on it if you can hold this, but if you just want to hold the bag, and I'll stick my hand in there. So this here's, I wrote the other soil mixes. This is one of the most popular brands that you'll find on your store shelf at most nurseries. But what do you see, Gary? If you want to explain what you see, and I'll tell you what the ingredients are. But what does this look like to you, and what's the difference between this and your blend?
Those are rotten plants.
Yeah.
So they call compost, it's a euphemism. So compost is a euphemism for dead, rotten plants. And what the manufacturers have gotten wrong is that they think that plants would like to live in dead, rotten plants, and because this is the nutrition source for plants. But what they haven't figured out, that this is really the home of mushrooms and bacteria and worms and things that are sacrificed that eat dead things. The plants live in essentially mineral soil that's sitting below this stuff on the surface. So even though they get the benefits of this, this is not their home. This is, if you want to get fungus in your plant's roots, this is what you grow them in, because this is the ideal home for fungus, not for plants.
And then this is the reason why, if I'm using this particular product, which I've been using again for years, and I'm changing my practices this year with all the knowledge I've learned from you and one other person I'll share quickly, a university professor, which just again confirmed my understanding of how important it is to steer clear of just adding pure organic material, and when improving soil and structure and repotting your plants is to also have a good balance of the inorganic, the things that won't break down and won't cause that root collapse within the container and even within your own ground. But the ingredients for this product are right here. I wanted to share this as well. So the ingredients of this particular formula was compost made out of rice hulls, recycled forest products, arbor fines, dairy manure, poultry manure, gypsum, dehydrated poultry manure, hydrolyzed feather meal. So all of these ingredients, as I understand it, will eventually break down into nothing. Like it'll
wonderful fertilizer, not a good home.
Yeah. So the other person that shared pretty much consistent to what you've just said is this individual I met last year is a UCLA professor by the name of Pieter Severinian, and he basically talked about soil, and right up here was his PowerPoint where it reads ideal soil composition, and then he had this chart which is hard to read. So I wrote down below what the chart reads is 45% mineral matter, 25% water, 25% air, and this is in ideal soil conditions, with 5% organic matter. But when you and I talked earlier, you said 5%, I mean, prior to all this understanding, I'm continuously learning from you, is 5% is even on the high end, and that's what and that is not what you would find naturally in nature, is 5% organic matter, mixed in or even within the soil, and that in fact it's something lower.
You may not find any. The national average that was published was 0.9% over the United States. In fact, we did see the soil article by UC Davis in 2000 saying that the average farm, the soil organic content was 1.1%. And he said that's perfect. 1.1% was perfect for them, but it may be they're counting the living organisms in the soil, not the dead stuff.
So they're counting the worm and the bacteria and the fungus and all that stuff, and that's part of that 1%
Right.
of organic matter that consists of healthy, soil that the farmers are using, the commercial growers are using. They're really relying on just that 1%, whereas the majority of us home growers and home gardeners trying to create that, that home jungle and that food forest are buying all of this organic matter that's 99% organic and thinking we've got to continuously enrich our soil with that, and that's not the way to go.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of literature will tell you add a lot of organic matter to the ground to make it rich and black, because you want the rich black soil. Well, decomposing organic matter, when it turns black, it's sewer gases, and that's like the worst thing you can ever do to your garden. So we've got to change that practice in the trade, and we're trying.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for all those helpful and educational tips. So to get your hands on Gary's best top mix as well as his acid mix soils, you know how to get here, and I'm going to give you directions to getting to the Laguna Hills Nursery if you're in Southern California. If you live outside of Southern California and you want to get your hands on this product, go to your local nursery. They know how to get in touch with L&L as well as Central Garden, and I'll put their contact information here as well as in the comments down below. Have your nursery get a hold of them to get these products into those stores so that you can get your hands on the best soil products to maximize the health and the life of your plants and trees. We're also proud to share that the Laguna Hills Nursery is also carrying the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 products as well as the whitewash products that you can find here as well. And we're very grateful that Laguna Hills Nursery is carrying these products. Be sure you can also call in advance to make sure that you've got the colors that you're looking for before you make the trip. I'm going to give you all of that contact information right now. So let me share with you how conveniently located the Laguna Hills Nursery is. If you come in a little closer, you can see that they're just off of the 55 freeway. They're just off the 22 freeway. They're just off the 5 freeway. And they're in the city of Santa Ana, but they're bordering, so here's Santa Ana, but they're bordering the city of Tustin. They're bordering the city of Orange. Anaheim is right there. There's Disneyland, so if you come down to Disneyland, don't forget to stop by Laguna Hills Nursery. There's Knott's Berry Farm, very close to Seal Beach and Long Beach as well. And then here's all of their contact information. Laguna Hills Nursery, you can also go to lagunahillsnursery.com, located at 1829 North Tustin Avenue in Santa Ana, California. And feel free to give them a call to make sure you've got your plants in stock at 714-542-5600. So when you go to the lagunahillsnursery.com, you'll see that they do free gardening classes every Saturday morning starting at 9:15 a.m. Do not forget to sign up for the weekly newsletters where you'll get a lot of helpful tips and gardening tips directly from Gary. And do you want to share some other lessons that you talk about in your gardening classes?
Well, coming up, we've got one on sustainable gardening, and then we have one on pruning. We do special classes on roses, how to take care of them, how to choose them. We go through most of the fruit trees and the vegetables also. So we try to cover everything throughout the year. Every class, every week is different.
That's fantastic. There's so many informative educational lessons, and I learn something new every time I'm here with you. At the end of this video, I'm basically going to put all the links to all of the Laguna Hill Nursery YouTube channel videos that they've been publishing with their garden lessons that they've been doing for the last, I think about 3 to 6 months of content is up there right now. And stay tuned. By subscribing, you'll be connected to all of that. So again, do not forget to subscribe, like their videos, come and visit this nursery. It's one of my favorite places here in Orange County. And thanks again, Gary, for all of your help.
Oh, thank you.
So I hope you've enjoyed this educational moment from Gary at the Laguna Hills Nursery and Ivory Organics, and if so, be sure to like it, and most importantly, by subscribing below, you'll be connected to this and all of our other helpful and educational videos. Thanks again for watching, and happy gardening.